Ever wonder why some decisions seem so obvious in hindsight, or why we sometimes hold beliefs that defy logic? Welcome to the fascinating world of cognitive biases, those brain-bending quirks that shape how we perceive reality and make decisions. Cognitive biases are essentially mental shortcuts, automatic responses that our brains have developed over millennia of evolution to help us navigate the world. They're like the cognitive equivalent of that friend who always takes the shortest route, even if it means cutting through a dodgy alleyway. It saves time, sure, but it's not always the safest or most reliable choice. Take, for instance, the confirmation bias. It's that nagging tendency we have to favor information that confirms our existing beliefs, while disregarding evidence that contradicts them. Say, you're convinced that all cats are aloof. You meet a friendly, affectionate cat, but rather than reconsider your belief, you brush it off as an exception. Confirmation bias, ladies and gentlemen, the mental shortcut that keeps our beliefs neatly intact even when they're challenged by reality. These biases are not just whimsical brain quirks. They've been shaped by evolution as survival mechanisms. Back in our cave-dwelling days, being able to make quick decisions could mean the difference between life and death. If you heard a rustling in the bushes, assuming it was a predator and running away was a safer bet than sticking around to investigate. This is known as the negativity bias, where we tend to give more weight to negative outcomes than positive ones. But despite their evolutionary roots, cognitive biases can lead us astray in our modern, complex world. They can distort our perception, muddle our decision-making, and even perpetuate harmful stereotypes. But don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. Recognizing these biases is the first step towards mitigating their effects. So, buckle up and let's dive deeper into the labyrinth of cognitive biases. It's a journey that will challenge your assumptions, question your perceptions, and perhaps even change the way you think. Ever noticed how people tend to seek out information that confirms their existing beliefs? This phenomenon is known as confirmation bias, and it's a powerful force that shapes our perception of the world. In our quest for understanding, our brains are wired to look for patterns and make connections. This is a survival instinct, honed over millions of years of evolution. But this instinct can also lead us astray. Confirmation bias kicks in when we give more weight to evidence that supports our beliefs and dismiss information that challenges them. Let's consider an example. Imagine a person who strongly aligns with a particular political party. This person, like many of us, probably consumes news that aligns with their political views. They might dismiss or ignore news from sources that challenge their perspective. This is confirmation bias in action. The person is selectively filtering information to confirm their existing beliefs. Why does this happen? Well, it's partly because our brains are wired to resist information that contradicts our beliefs. It's uncomfortable to have our beliefs challenged, and it's much easier to surround ourselves with information that confirms what we already think. But here's the catch. Confirmation bias can lead to flawed decision-making. By only seeking out information that supports our views, we can become blind to other perspectives. We can miss out on important information, and our understanding of the world can become skewed. For instance, in our earlier example, the politically aligned person might make voting decisions based on biased information. They might also have difficulty understanding or empathizing with people who hold different political views. So, what can we do about it? Awareness is the first step. By recognizing that confirmation bias exists and understanding how it works, we can start to challenge our own biases. We can make a conscious effort to seek out diverse perspectives and consider evidence that challenges our beliefs. Confirmation bias can blind us to reality, reinforcing our beliefs rather than challenging them. But with awareness and effort, we can strive to see the world more clearly, embracing the complexity and diversity of perspectives it has to offer. Ever thought, I knew it would turn out this way after the fact? Well, you're not alone. This is a common cognitive bias known as hindsight bias, or the I knew it all along phenomenon. Let's delve a bit deeper into what this bias is all about. Hindsight bias occurs when we convince ourselves after an event has happened that we predicted or expected it. It's like looking back at a football match and asserting, I knew they were going to win, even if at the start you were unsure of the outcome. Why does this happen? Well, our brains are wired to create narratives that make sense of the world, and having a sense of predictability and control is comforting. After an event, our brain connects the dots between what we knew before and what we know now, often ignoring or downplaying the uncertainties that existed in the past. Let's illustrate this with a real-life example. Imagine a friend who, after a major political event, claims they predicted the outcome all along. You remember them being unsure and changing their opinion multiple times before the event. But now, they insist they had a clear foresight. What's happening here is a classic case of hindsight bias. This bias isn't just a quirky feature of our minds, though. It has substantial implications. For instance, it can distort our memory of events, leading us to remember our predictions as being more accurate than they were. It can make us overconfident in our predictive abilities, thinking we have a knack for foreseeing the future when in fact we don't. Moreover, it can lead us to underestimate risks. If we believe we can predict outcomes, we may take unnecessary risks, thinking we have it all figured out. This is particularly relevant in areas like investing, where overconfidence can lead to significant losses. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, I knew it would turn out this way, pause for a moment, question whether you're falling prey to hindsight bias. Awareness is the first step towards mitigating its effects. Hindsight bias can make us overconfident in our predictive abilities and lead us to underestimate risks. Ever noticed how the first piece of information you hear about something can heavily influence your perception of it? This is the anchoring bias at play, a cognitive quirk that causes us to rely too heavily on the first piece of information we encounter, the anchor. Imagine you're house hunting. You see a beautiful home that's just within your budget. It's the first one you've looked at, and you fall in love. The house has everything you've been dreaming of: a spacious kitchen, a cozy fireplace, and a garden that's just the right size. You're so captivated by this first house that every other property you view afterward seems to fall short. You've anchored your expectations and perceptions on that first house, and it's influencing your decision-making process. Why does this happen? Our brains are wired to seek patterns and make quick judgments. This helped our ancestors make rapid decisions in the face of danger. But in the modern world, this instinct can lead us astray. When we anchor our thoughts, we use this initial piece of information as a reference point for all subsequent decisions, judgments, or predictions. This can cause us to undervalue or overlook other relevant information. Anchoring bias can affect us in many areas of our lives, from the big decisions like house hunting or negotiating a salary, to the smaller ones like choosing a meal at a restaurant. It's not always a negative thing. Sometimes relying on our initial impressions can help us make decisions more efficiently. But it's important to be aware of it so we can counteract its effects when necessary. So, how do we do that? By questioning our first impressions and actively seeking out additional information. When we're aware of our tendency to anchor, we can take steps to ensure we're making the best decisions possible, considering all the relevant information at our disposal. Anchoring bias can make us overlook important information, causing us to make suboptimal decisions. But by understanding and recognizing it, we can better navigate the world around us, making more informed and rational choices. Wondering how to outsmart your own brain? Well, overcoming cognitive biases is not about outsmarting, but about understanding and challenging our natural tendencies. Let's start with the first tip. Seek diverse perspectives. Cognitive biases often stem from our tendency to rely on familiar patterns and perspectives. By seeking input from a wide range of people, we expose ourselves to different ways of thinking and challenge our own assumptions. This diversity can help us to counterbalance our biases and broaden our understanding. Next, slow down your decision-making. We often make snap judgments based on our initial impressions or gut feelings. While this might serve us well in some situations, it can also lead us astray. By taking the time to consider all the information available, we can make more informed and less biased decisions. Another important approach is to challenge your assumptions. We all have beliefs and assumptions that we take for granted, but these can often be influenced by cognitive biases. It's important to regularly question and challenge these assumptions. Ask yourself, why do I believe this? What evidence do I have to support this belief? Is there a possibility that I could be wrong? Furthermore, cultivate self-awareness. This means being aware of your own thought processes, emotions, and biases. Self-awareness can help you identify when you're falling into cognitive bias traps. For instance, if you notice that you tend to favor information that confirms your existing beliefs, you're falling into the confirmation bias. By recognizing this, you can then consciously seek out information that challenges your beliefs. Lastly, practice mindfulness and critical thinking. Mindfulness helps us stay present and aware, reducing the likelihood of falling into cognitive bias traps. Critical thinking, on the other hand, encourages us to scrutinize information and arguments, helping us make unbiased decisions. Awareness is the first step to overcoming cognitive biases. The next time you make a decision, remember to check your biases at the door. Cognitive biases, they're not flaws, just features of our brain's operating system. It's a fitting analogy given how these ingrained mental shortcuts guide our perceptions and decisions, often without us even realizing it. We've journeyed through the intriguing landscape of cognitive biases, exploring how they shape our realities. From the confirmation bias that has us seeing what we want to see, to the hindsight bias that convinces us we knew it all along. We've looked into the anchoring bias that makes first impressions so powerful and delved into strategies to mitigate their effects. We've learned that cognitive biases are ubiquitous, present in each and every one of us. They're not something we can simply switch off, but we can be aware of them. By acknowledging these biases, we can strive to make more informed and objective decisions, rather than being unknowingly led by our subconscious tendencies. The fascinating thing about cognitive biases is that they're not inherently negative. They evolved as survival mechanisms to help our ancestors make quick decisions in a complex world. In modern times, while they can lead to errors in judgment, they can also foster creativity and intuition. The key is to recognize when they might be at play and to ensure they don't unduly influence our decision-making process. Remember, it's not about eliminating these biases, but rather about understanding them and managing their impact. By doing so, we can foster more empathy and understanding in our interactions with others. We can appreciate that everyone's perceptions are influenced by their own set of biases, shaping their unique view of the world. So, as we wrap up this journey through cognitive biases, let's take with us the knowledge and understanding we've gained. Let's strive to use this awareness to be more thoughtful, more understanding, and make better decisions in our everyday lives. Remember, cognitive biases shape how we see the world. By understanding them, we can make better decisions and foster more understanding in our interactions with others.